but they never tell you the milligrams. And therein is the key that you're not getting much. Instead, you're just getting enough to make label claims. Maybe 1 milligram, 5 milligrams, nothing. Biologically, nothing. To really have the benefit of green tea, or white tea, or red tea, or black tea, all from the same identical tea leaf, it's just how it's processed, you need about minimum 200 milligrams per serving. Now that would mean you'd have to have about 3 tea bags in a cup, let it steep for about 5 minutes, and that would give you a good, and then by the way, putting a quarter teaspoon of lemon juice in there is very good for rebalancing pH in the body. Or taking a capsule. And if you take it with red clover, even greater enhancement to the body. And then do that about 3 times a day. I'm believing that around 800 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams of green tea a day is really good for you. And very little caffeine. Remember, in green tea you also have an amino acid called theanine. Theanine. Theanine helps neutralize the adverse effects of green tea. It does just the opposite. It calms you out. Theanine is used in more than 150 common products in Japan to keep people calm. So theanine is a great natural calmative agent, but it's what helps prevent the caffeine in green tea from having any real biological action. That said, here's the latest study, and this is from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and it says the following from nutriingredients.com. I'll quote this. Drinking frequent cups of green tea a day is linked to a lower incidence of depression. This is a major study. They followed 1,058 Japanese individuals and found the prevalence of mild and severe and depression symptoms was reduced by 34% when they had the green tea. So to help people relax, to help reduce mental stress, which is a growing problem, green tea. Now, most people like chocolate, and why not? It's a healthy treat. If you buy healthy chocolate, and there are healthy chocolates on the market. Here's the latest from the British Journal of Nutrition. It says, cocoa contains polyphenols. And those are good, by the way. The polyphenols help nourish the endothelial lining. That's the lining of your arteries and veins. And when those are soft and pliable and clean, that means that more nutrients can get through into the cells. It means that the blood going through the artery or vein can allow the vein to expand or contract. It's a whole lot better. Just visualize this. Visualize your artery as a water hose. And you turn on the water and a lot goes through, and you turn up the full volume and it expands a little bit. Now leave that outside in the sun for a year, and suddenly it's a cracked, rigid, non-flexible, non-inflating water hose. So it's harder for water to get through. That's what polyphenols do. It makes it soft again, healing. And you get those polyphenols from several sources. But cocoa, and especially raw cocoa, is at the top of the list. Now, health benefits of the polyphenols from cocoa have been gathered, and there's a lot of research. For example, quote, this is from the peer-reviewed journal, chocolate and cocoa are two different terms and are not interchangeable. Cocoa is the non-fat component of cocoa liquor, which are finely ground cocoa beans, which is used in chocolate making as cocoa powder, commonly 12% fat, for cooking or drinks. Cocoa liquor contains about 55% cocoa butter, and together this comprises cocoa solids, often referred to as chocolate. And chocolate refers to the combination of cocoa butter, and whatever ingredients you put into a solid food. Cocoa polyphenols can benefit any health condition that is impacted by circulation, unquote. So, there are 30 human studies in the last 10 years showing that polyphenols from coca are important for the healthy heart, and so can lower blood pressure, are good blood antioxidants. And a meta-analysis by researchers at the University Hospital of Cologne found that consumption of coca had significant positive impact on blood pressure, quote from their study in the Archives of Internal Medicine. The magnitude of the hypotensive effects, meaning blood pressure lowering effects of coca, is clinically noteworthy. It is in the range that is usually achieved with monotherapy of beta blockers and other enzyme inhibitors, unquote. So what do we learn? We learn that when you have a healthy chocolate, one without the dairy, without the cream, without all the processed sugars, you're doing something good for the heart and for circulation and for blood pressure. Now, that doesn't mean you sit down and you eat a whole giant chocolate bar. It means have yourself a few, pieces a day, and that's fine. And just discipline yourself so you don't eat the whole thing. I remember the first time I met Robert Atkins. I was on Johnny Carson, and it was playing around, and he came over to my office and he said, "Can you get me on there?" And I said, "Well, I thought you'd been on." He says, "Oh, I've been on all the shows, but I can't get back on." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, you go through trends, you become the hot book of the moment," and that lasted for a long time, about 2 years. And he sold millions of copies, and then, you're no longer up on their chart. So I made a call over there to one of the producers I knew, and I said, "He's got a new book. Could you take a look?" And they said yes. And then when I went out on tour, he called me and he said, "We're both on the same side when it comes to challenging the FDA. Why don't we go on tour together?" I said, "Well, I'm already on tour." So he joined me on my tour, and we promoted the FDA's desire to restrict vitamins, make them called drugs. And he did a good job, and I commended him for his constant diligence. We had many press conferences, and though on the subject of diet we were diametrically opposite. I was promoting a vegan diet, and he was promoting a high-meat, fat diet. I remember once we went into a restaurant that was his favorite on Park Avenue, an Indian restaurant, and he ordered a whole lot of different fat animal protein foods, and I ordered the typical and healthy and tasty vegan Indian foods. And it was rather interesting to see the two. And we agreed that we would hold different points of opinion, but that day I brought him a study, and I says, "Bob, I don't know if you're aware of this, but take a look at this." And it was a study showing the higher incidence of cancer, colorectal cancer, and higher level of heart disease in people who are on a high-protein diet. And he looked at it and he said, "Well, okay, but we give them nutrients." And I said, "Well, Bob, that's like smoking cigarettes and taking vitamin C, or being in a highly stressed job and taking a B complex. It doesn't change it. It only lessens the impact." But he was unmoved by any argument I put forward him. But I continued to send him these articles. And now I look back, and almost 70% of the people who were once on the Atkins program, when I counsel people, they were on it. They might have lost some weight, but they had a lot of other problems because they were on that. Here's one more problem to add for those of you who've been on the Atkins diet or the other high-protein diets. This is from Molecular Neurodegeneration, a peer-reviewed journal. Let me quote this. "High-protein diet may make your brain lighter." This is an animal study. Quote, "Eating a high-protein diet appears to make the brains of mice lighter," reports researchers, "and that this could make you more vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease." Quote, "The high-protein diet was popular in the 1990s as a diet approach and was commercialized in the form of the Atkins diet. The approach caused great concern among dietitians who advised that a healthy diet should include all macronutrients. The Atkins diet has since been amended to include carbohydrates. For a new study published in the journal Molecular Neurodegeneration,